Hey, Allison Verhalen here with AV Writing Services, and today I am talking to you guys about how to create a winning content strategy for your blog. So I hear this from a lot of small business owners who maybe they tried blogging on their own for a little bit, didn't get the results they wanted, they decide blogging doesn't work or it doesn't work for them or for their industry or whatever. But more often than not, the problem is they were doing it themselves, so it wasn't as effective as it could have been, or B, or some combination thereof, they did not come up with a content strategy before blogging. They were just blogging when they had time, when they felt like it, when they had nothing better to do. They were blogging about whatever came to mind instead of creating a strategy that was centered around their customer and what their customer wants instead of what they're interested in the moment. So that's what we're going to talk about on this video today, is how to avoid that problem. Because if you do have a consistent strategy and you're consistently blogging and you put the customer front and center and you understand their needs and wants and you put that at the center of all of your content and you build that funnel accordingly, blogging can be a great way to build leads. On average, small businesses with a blog generate 126% more leads online compared to small businesses that do not have a blog. So blogging is super important, but you gotta do it the right way. So we're gonna tell you how to do it the right way. First one, define your goals. You can't say that blogging doesn't work if you don't first define your goals. Any strategy needs to have goals, right? So that you know whether or not you hit those benchmarks. Now, we're just gonna go right into the second tip because it's tied to the first tip, which is understanding your buyer journey. So for us, like if you're a service-based industry or a B2B industry, your buyer journey is gonna be a little bit longer than if you're selling something fairly inexpensive, if you're selling hair care products or jewelry or pet supply products, whatever it is, stuff that people need a lot of and they need it on a regular basis and it's not super expensive. So they might see an ad for your stuff on social media and buy right away. That's great. But if you're in a service-based industry, if you do finances, if you're an attorney, if you have a longer buyer journey, your product or service requires a bigger investment on the part of the consumer, they're going to want to get that buy-in first, and more often than not they're going to go to your blog to get that buy-in. So what you need to understand is when people are getting to your blog. Is it when they know who you are and they're just deciding if you're the one they want or if they want to go with another company? Is it when they're just trying to figure out what's going on? Someone, for example, who searches financial planning might not necessarily be looking for a financial planner right now. Maybe they're just like, hey, what is financial planning? Do I need a financial planner? What would that look like? How much would that cost me? They're looking for just the basic information, and that is a great keyword to use on your blog, not so much on your sales page. When they search something like a financial planner who helps you save for your kids' college tuition, that is something that they are looking for that is very specific. They know what they need. They just need to figure out who can help them the most with that particular need. So that's when you want to target that particular keyword for either your sales page and or a blog post that's a little bit later on in the buyer journey. So where they are in the buyer journey is going to affect your goals for that blog, right? If you have something that's fairly inexpensive, if you have an option where they can try a kit either for free or as a sample kit, for example, either for free or for not a lot of money, that lets them try it out. They don't have to commit to it. They're not subscribing to anything. It's not a huge monetary investment. That might be a great way to have a blog for that features that particular product or service, tells them what it's all about, tells them how to use it, highlights the benefits of it, and then encourages them to get that sample so that you can, again, reel them in and then check in on them after they bought the sample and see if they liked it, how it went, all that good stuff. But for most of us in the service-based industry and the B2B industries, it's going to take a little bit longer to reel them in. Most blog posts are just going to be like, here's what you need to know. Here's what I know, which is what a big feature of a blog is, one of the biggest benefits of a blog for your business is that you are highlighting what you know. So use that in your blog so that when they do get to the decision stage, they know that you know what you're talking about and they want to work with you. So you've defined your goals and you know your customer journey, you know where they are in the buyer journey when they get to your blog. So maybe if it is a longer buyer journey for them, maybe you want to, at the end of that blog post, encourage them to sign up for your newsletter or for your webinar or follow you on social media or do something else that's not a big ask, right? It might ask for some of their time, but not a monetary commitment yet. So define your goals, understand your customer's buyer journey. Those two go hand in hand. Next, you have to define your target audience. You have to know exactly who they are. Are they male or female? Are they both? Are they gender non-binary? They could be any one of those things depending on what it is you're selling. And you need to know their income level. Do they have a family? Do they have pets? You have to know everything about them so that you know where they're hanging out online. It all comes down to how can you get in front of them and how can you convert them into customers. And in order to do all that, you have to know exactly who they are. And number 4, understand what their pain points are. The pain points should be the focus of all of your content because that's what's going to motivate them to buy. That is what is motivating them to search, which is how they're going to find you when they search stuff online. And that's also what you can use to motivate them to buy from you, is once they get to your website and they see that content and you remind them of that pain point and you say, hey, this sucks, doesn't it? You don't like feeling like this. And if you don't do something about it now, it's going to get even worse. And this is what it's going to feel like later on down the road. But if you hire me, work with me, buy my product or service, whatever, it can feel like this instead, and paint a picture of what that would feel like for them after you solve this problem for them and prevent it from getting worse. So that has to be the front and center of all of your content, of your sales page, your landing pages, and especially your blog. So you know your customer and you know their pain points, and you're focusing really hard on them. Next up, you're going to do your keyword research because their pain points influences what they're searching for, right? So you know who your customer is, you know what their pain points are. That means you know what they're searching for, what kinds of search terms they're using, and when they're using them. Again, be sure that you're matching the right keywords to the right content. You want to use long tail keywords in your blog as well, but some long tail keywords like small business marketing in Chicago, for example, is a fairly long tail keyword, but that's not necessarily someone who's ready to buy. Someone might just be searching for information on that. They're not necessarily ready to hire someone just yet. So understand the buyer intent behind the keywords, and maybe you can absolutely use some high buy intent keywords in your blog post. That's not going to hurt, but you're really going to want to focus on those exploratory keywords where they're just looking for information, they're not sure yet they want to buy, they're just kind of testing the waters, and that's where you're going to want to get them to find your blog so that you can start reeling them in. Next, you are going to want to check up on the competition. What are they blogging about? How long is their content? What kinds of images or videos are they using in their content marketing? How often are they blogging? When are they blogging? When do they publish their blog posts? You want to know all of this stuff so that you can not copy them. You're not going to copy their content because that's not going to help anyone. But get a feel for what their content strategy looks like. And if someone is really successful in your industry, there's probably a reason. So see if you can reverse engineer a little bit of their content strategy. You can try posting when they post. You can cover similar topics. If they cover a topic and you don't like the way they cover it, you can absolutely write a response on your own blog and say, hey, so-and-so said this, and I respect that, and I see why they said that, but I think they're wrong, and here's why. And lay out all your reasons so that you're really positioning yourself as an authority who really knows what you're talking about. You're not just copying what other people say. You're thinking about it and giving a reason why you think something else. So next up, you're going to write your content calendar. Because again, you're not writing about whatever you feel like. You're picking topics based on your keyword research. What are the keywords that have a fairly high search volume but not a super high competition rate, so that there's not a lot of content already out there with that keyword, so you're not competing with tons of other content and then you're not showing up in searches. You don't want to focus on those keywords. You want to focus on the ones with the low difficulty, low SEO difficulty, or low SEO competition, depending on the keyword tool you're using, but still a fairly high search volume, because that's an indication that there's a content gap in there, right? People are searching for answers for something specific and they're not finding those answers. And that's really frustrating. And that's where you have an opportunity to slip in there and say, hey, I know that you're asking this question and I know the answer. So here it is. It's a great way to get people to your blog. And again, write that great content. That's the next step. Once you've got your content calendar laid out for at least the next month or two, sit down and write that content. Set aside at least an hour or two where you could be sitting, you could be standing. I have a standing desk, so maybe you're standing at your standing desk, writing your content, hopefully without distractions. If you can manage to get the pets, kids, spouses, business partner, coworkers, whatever, out of your hair for just an hour or two. Make sure it's at a time when you are super focused and you are ready, and it's when you function at your best level. That's when you want to be doing your writing, because that's what's going to make it go really quickly. A lot of people, when they sit and they stare at that page, there are a lot of reasons they could be staring at a blank page, but sometimes it's because they're trying to write at a time of day when they're just not, their brain is not fully engaged, right? We all have those times of day when we're with it, we are in the flow, and there are other times when we can barely keep our eyes open. I am not a morning person. I do not write in the morning. I write in the afternoon and evening, because that is when I am most alert and most focused. So find out what that time is for you, and that's when you should be writing. Next up, you are going to edit your content. Preferably, you have a professional editor to look it over, make sure it makes sense, make sure there are no typos. If you can't afford an editor, hopefully you at least have a business partner, a spouse, a friend, someone you trust who can look it over, and at least look it over with fresh eyes. They don't have to be professional to make sure that all the grammar and all the spelling is correct. But all your grammar and all your spelling really should be correct, because that does affect people's buying decision. But if you're on a budget and you can't afford it, at least get someone to look it over with fresh eyes. Maybe something doesn't flow very well. Maybe something doesn't make sense, especially if you're in a B2C industry and you think you make sense and someone else reading it who's not in your industry is like, what are you talking about here? Make sure you get someone who will hold you accountable in that way, so that they can look it over with those fresh eyes. If you don't have anyone else to look over your content, leave your content alone for at least 24 hours, preferably up to a week. The longer you can let it sit without touching it, just don't even think about it. Don't even look at it. Just let it sit there, so that when you come back to it, you can really look at it with fresh eyes and start to think, oh yeah, this doesn't make sense, and maybe this part should go over here instead of over there. And you'll have a better chance of catching those typos. We have a whole other blog post and video about catching those typos, so you can check that out on our blog at avwritingservices.com/blog. So you've edited your content, it is polished, it is perfect, it is ready to go out into the world. You're gonna hit that publish button. You may think you're done. You're not done. Next up, you have to promote it, right? You're going to distribute it to your newsletter. You're going to push it out on social media. SEO can help, but SEO can only do so much. If you're in any Facebook groups or LinkedIn groups, maybe you're going to want to push it out on there so that people can see it there. And again, that gives the blog post a better chance of generating some traffic. And then if it starts to generate some traffic from there, that's also going to boost the SEO. And then the SEO can bring in traffic, and it's going to be this happy circle where you get lots of traffic to your blog. But it's going to take a while for Google to index that content and get it to start showing up in searches. So keep that in mind. But again, don't freak out if it takes a little while for Google to register it for your content to start showing up in searches. And so keep that in mind when we get to our next step, which is measuring your results, right? Again, it's not a strategy if you're not measuring your results and making sure that you are getting the results that you want to out of your content. So make sure you're doing that. Go back to step one. What was your goal? What did you want to get out of this content? How much traffic did the blog post drive? Did people come to the blog post from social media, from Google? What keywords were they searching if they got there from Google? How long did they stay? Did they come to that blog post from a different blog post on your website or from a sales page? Did they go from that blog post to another blog post or to a sales page? Did they sign up for your newsletter, follow you on social media? You get the idea. Whatever your goal was for that particular piece of content, make sure that you got those results. And if you did get those results that you wanted, great. Rinse and repeat. It's a blogging strategy, right? You're never done. It's just time to go on to the next one. So if you did not get the results that you wanted, maybe it's time to step back and see what worked and what didn't, and maybe adjust your strategy a little bit and try again and keep trying until you find whatever works. If it worked the first time, great. You just have to keep doing that. But always keep measuring your results because, again, Google and social media channels are always changing their algorithms. So you're always going to want to check in to make sure that what you're doing is still working. Just because it worked the first time, don't assume that it's always going to keep working that way. And that's it. Those are our tips for creating and maintaining your blogging content strategy so you can actually get results from your blog. If you have any other questions, I'm Allison Verhalen. You can reach me at info@avwritingservices.com. Again, our website is avwritingservices.com. We have a blog full of awesome content there. You can check that all out. Have a great week and happy marketing.